Hello, 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 and welcome to Focus on the Child. Today we're going to be talking about a very serious and prevalent issue, and that's the issue of child sexual abuse. Is anybody there with me? Good. Thank you. Let's just wait for a few people to join before I start speaking. I'm Kemi Williams, by the way. Thank you. It's good to have you. It's good to have you. Wave, wave. Yes, I can see you. I'm going to ask you to join me soon. I'm just going to get a few more people to join us. I'm going to run through a few things briefly, and then we'll have you join us. It's good to have you. Right. Yes. Thank you. I'll be inviting you in a few minutes. Let's just wait for a few more people to join us, and then we'll be looking closely at this. I was just talking about myself and Yeshua's arm. Thank you. I was just talking about myself and Yeshua's arm and talking about speaking into the camera, really, because we want to have this recorded. It's good to have you join us. Thank you. I can see Gold Sheed. Thank you. It's good to have you. We're just waiting for a few more people and then we'll start. If this cuts off, it looks like we're going to need a few more minutes. We're going to need about another 20 more minutes. So it would be so nice if you can just remember to log back in, because that's what we're going to do, just to make sure that we have enough time to conclude this. I doubt if the time will do it justice, but we'll do our best. Thank you. It's good to have you join today. I'm going to start in another minute so I don't keep people waiting. Thank you. It's good to see you join us as well. Fola Banco, thank you. It's good to have you. We're going to start we'll give it another 30 seconds thereabouts to see if anybody else would join us, and then we'll just start, and then they can just follow up, with the video will be there to watch later. So hopefully that would not be a major problem for people to log in. Okay, we have somebody. Okay, Faye has joined. Faye Wana, thank you for joining us. So we're going to start because I think we've so that we don't waste too much time. Like I said, it's going to take a bit over an hour. It's going to take more than an hour. So we're going to have to come back in because it's an hour that Facebook Live gives us. Thank you. Abimbola has joined as well. So it's going to be an hour that Facebook Live gives us, but Insta Live. So we'll probably need a few more minutes to conclude what we're going to do today. So we're going to have a child safety. I'm so sorry. Let me just make sure I have the name right, so I'm not mixing things up. Our speaker today is going to be Bolaji Badamosi. She's a child behavioral specialist and a child sexuality educator. So she empowers children of all ages with the skills and knowledge to guard against sexual abuse and exploitation through training and the provision of resources. She's a practitioner of neuro-linguistics programming, that's NLP, and certified in family systems engineering. She's a fellow of Child Power Champions Program, an associate fellow of National Center of Sexual Exploitation, DC. She's an advocate of childhood preservation and defending the innocence of children. So she's going to be joining us today, but I'm going to be kicking off. I'm Kemi Williams. I'm the founder and lead professional of Yeshua's Arm, and today we're going to be looking at the issue of child abuse. We're going to be discussing it. We're going to be looking closely at child abuse. This phenomenon called child abuse, it seems to be, prevalent, and it seems to be growing, but it's really been with us from, well, I don't want to say from beginning of time, but from as much as everybody knows, child abuse is something that is even bigger than, it has come to the attention of any authority. It's something that is prevalent in our society, and it's something that is quite insidious. And it's something that we would never know the real amount of people or children that have been exposed to child abuse. It's going to be very, very difficult for us to know the real, numbers, because the truth is, it is still a phenomenon that is shrouded in shame. It's something that is shrouded in secrecy. And it's something that people don't want to talk about. It's something that is, for many children, it's still a fearful thing to talk about. We have people in old people's homes, people in the 80s and 90s that are still disclosing child abuse that happened when they were children. So when you have people in the 80s and 90s just disclosing child abuse, then you know it's something that has been with us for a pretty long time. So it's quite prevalent. It's more prevalent than we'll ever know. It's not rare at all. And why we think that it's something that is, growing, or something that is becoming so prevalent in our society today, I would disagree with that. It's something that, because we have now the advent of social media, it's becoming, news is traveling faster, and news that we would probably never have heard of before is coming to light, and people can have easy access to news. You have your people have their recorders with them. They can easily record information. They can easily, pick up things that are happening around them that probably they would not have done before. So it's something that is not new at all. And it's just a fraction that is coming to the attention of the authorities. Just a minute fraction that is coming to the attention of the authorities. So that's important for us to know in regards to child abuse. But what is sexual abuse? What is child sexual abuse? What is child sexual abuse? How would we define it? Let me try and put a definition around it. Child sexual abuse is activities, or anything that involves making, forcing, enticing a child in any form of sexual activity. Making, forcing, or enticing a child into any form of sexual activity. Rape includes child abuse. So a child does not have to be raped to have been sexually abused. A child could be made to do something. A child could be made to do something by someone that is in a position of power over that child, or enticed to do something by someone that is in a position of authority over that child, and, that child would do it. It doesn't have to be forced for it to be sexual abuse. That's what I'm trying to say here. Rape is forced, but child abuse goes beyond rape. It's something that a child could seemingly consent to, because the person that is, the perpetrator of the abuse is someone that has power over that child. So child abuse is more than rape. Child abuse includes the rape of a child. A child does not necessarily have to be raped to have been abused. And penetration does not necessarily have to have taken place for it to be considered abuse. In other words, it does not mean that until, let me be very, visual here. It does not mean that until a man's penis, goes into a young girl's vagina for us to know that abuse has taken place. Anything, a lot of things could be abusive. It could just be, maybe sometimes it could just be a man or somebody masturbating in front of a child, inducing a child to maybe do some things to him. There are times that it's not necessarily penetrative. It could be non-penetrative. It could be fondling. It could be fondling outside of clothes. It could be fondling with the clothes on. So it's not necessarily until penetration takes place, because sometimes, children could get confused. What is going on here? It may not be something so explicit to them at that time to really feel that, maybe, is this really abuse? Is the abuse taking place? He just kissed me. It was just a French kiss. He just told me to sit on his laps and I was feeling something, or he was doing certain things, or maybe he was masturbating in front of me. That is actually abuse. So whether it's penetrative or non-penetrative, it is classified as child abuse. Now, between you and I, you know that the ones that will come to the attention of the authorities will probably be the ones where penetration is actually taking place. It takes a lot to prove abuse. So it would probably be the ones where there is clear-cut evidence, where there has been, a clear-cut evidence for a child to be able to explicitly say and prove, because there will have to be some proof in court for them to be able to say abuse has taken place. But that's not the only time that abuse occurs, and it's very important that we understand that. Another thing that about abuse, about sexual abuse of children, is, a child can be sexually abused without contact. There can be contactless sexual abuse. Children can be induced to performing sexual acts on each other without the perpetrator of that act between those children, actually doing anything to them. He could be somebody that gets a kick off watching children doing certain acts. It could be someone that is actually recording it. Even getting children to get involved in pornography, it's child abuse. We must remember, it is child abuse. Getting children to get involved in pornography, getting them to do sexual acts, doing, dancing a certain way, maybe stripping and all those things that, happens like in child pornography. It's sexual abuse, because many times these children are being made to do things that they don't even have an understanding of. And we need to have that concept of, this child doesn't have an understanding of what is going on. So it's not until the child has understanding that this child is being abused. And let's forget that young children, very young children, children below the ages of 2, children in diapers also get abused. So even the issue of having, of even knowing what is really happening does not even have to be there. A child of under 2 probably doesn't even have a clue of what is going on around him or her. But that child, we've seen children that have been sexually abused below the age of 2, children that have still been in diapers. So very important for us to also remember that, to understand that, sexual abuse goes on in different ways than we have a concept of. Now, who abuses children? Who are those that abuses children? Predominantly, we know they're male. For what has come to light, predominantly, it's a male adult that predominantly abuses children. But we've seen many situations as well where, female have abused children. Female have been involved in abusing children. Sometimes they're the ones that would, maybe if, they've been paid to help to perpetrate the abuse, maybe they've been told to do certain recordings of children. So things like that have happened as well. And then they've been also abused by older children on younger children. So abuse is not just, penetrative. It's not just, it could be non-penetrative. It could be, contactless, as in, the person perpetrating the abuse has not even physically, touch that child. And also, like I said, sometimes women have gotten involved for whatever, sometimes for monetary reasons, for whatever reasons. And there've also been abuse from women as well. We've heard of some, I was a social worker for many years in the UK, and we heard of some, there have been some odd cases, but very profound cases of where women have been involved in abuse. Women that maybe have lived in houses, with children and have done some horrible things to them. And some children have also disclosed sexual abuse by women, especially male children. I'm going to talk a bit about the male child abuse, because it's not very common. So I'm going to talk a bit about that. Male child abuse, from the body of knowledge that we have at the moment, from the body of research we have at the moment, is not as prevalent as the female child abuse. male child abuse, what has come to light to date in terms of knowledge and understanding and cases of abuse has been possibly about half. For every 2 female, probably have about 1, or for every 3 female, you probably have about 1 male child that has been abused. But having said that, we must not forget that the fact that the number of male children that seem to be abused are much less than the female child. It does not mean more male children are not being abused that, that we don't know about, or they're not even not being, that is not coming to light in a way that would bring attention to them in any shape or form. We must not forget that there are many reasons why we will probably not hear much about the male child being abused. There are many reasons. First of all, we need to know that the male child does not talk as much as the female child. Male children tend not to talk as much as female children when it comes to things like this. And another reason is there's always that, guard or male guard around being independent. There's this thing about being a male, about being macho, that a lot of boys even begin to pick up, that makes them feel, this is not something I should talk about. And there's also the issue of, will my freedom be curtailed if I do talk about this? If I disclose abuse, if I disclose, that something has happened to me? They're quite intuitive. They'll probably think about it and say, look, if I have to talk about this, I'll probably never be allowed to go out on my own. I would lose my independence. I would not be allowed to move freely. Mommy or daddy will be guarded about me. They will not trust me to be able to look out for myself. So there are many reasons why the male child will not disclose. And there's also that thing about the stigma of homosexuality, the dent on their masculinity. We mustn't forget these are many reasons why a male child will not disclose abuse. So it does happen. We must not forget that it does happen. The way abuse happens to male children, it happens to, the way it happens to female children, it happens to male children as well. It's all, many times the issue of abuse is shrouded in shame, is shrouded in secrecy, is shrouded in fear. So the reasons for not disclosing abuse is rife, and it's very high. There are many reasons why people don't disclose abuse, and it's important for us to remember that. Now, I want to talk a bit about the type of abuse that we usually encounter. Even in my role, as a social worker, there are different types. We categorize it because for reasons of risk management, we categorize it for reasons of safety management and support management. So there are many reasons why we categorize abuse. And the most, I'll probably look at three major areas and 3 major types of abuse. The major part or the major type of abuse that is very, very damaging to a child is what is known as the intrafamilial abuse. That is particularly damaging to a child. It's damaging, or it's really damaging to a child because, first of all, it goes on for long periods of times undetected. This is abuse that happens in the home, usually by fathers, stepfathers, uncles, big brothers, and it's particularly, so far, it seems like the girl child is more at risk of interfamilial abuse. And it's particularly dangerous because it usually goes on for long periods of time without people knowing. And that child does not necessarily display any sort of, behavior that would necessarily link what's their behavior to an abusive situation going on. So it's something that is very, very dangerous. It's particularly very dangerous, and the child understands that this is actually a big risk to disclose this sort of thing. Another reason why that abuse, interfamilial abuse, is particularly dangerous is because it rocks the very foundation of that child's social support. This person that is abusing this child is supposed to be the child's strongest social support, and this is now become the weakest link, or the most terrible link in terms of risk for this child. So it confuses this child. It's actually very psychologically damaging. It's actually very psychologically damaging because it brings a lot of confusion into this child's space, into this child's minds and space. First of all, the home that is supposed to be the safest place for the child has now become the most dangerous place for the child. And now this person that is supposed to be the safest person that this child can be with has now become the most dangerous person that this child can be with. The person the child is supposed to run to has now become the most dangerous person that this child can be with. So it's actually very, very dangerous. And it causes a lot of psychological long-term damage, even for that child in a lot of ways. Another reason why it's also a very difficult and possibly the most dangerous type of abuse for a child, not just physically, but mentally and psychologically, emotionally, is because there then becomes it also causes a kind of how would I put it, social conflict, loyalty conflicts in the family. It causes a lot of loyalty conflicts because then you have other siblings, you have the other parents. For example, if it was a child being abused by her father, and then the mother is there, the older siblings are there, the younger siblings are there. Now they have to begin to take sides. They have to begin to choose who to take sides with, who to support in this sort of situation. So children know that all these dynamics exist. If they do tell, what's going to happen to the whole family? If they do tell, is this father going to continue providing? Supposing he's a good, in quotes, if there's anything like that, a good father in quotes, will he continue providing? Maybe the mother is a housewife who's never worked a day in her life. This man provides for the whole family. Perhaps is even a good, in quotes, provider who is not stingy, who looks after all the other siblings, or maybe the male siblings, and is abusing the female siblings. So while it's very dangerous because sometimes the mothers actually connive. The mothers pretend, they turn a blind eye because they're weakened. They see themselves as powerless in that situation. So the children understand these dynamics in homes. They study, they see what is going on in their homes. They know the level to which they're supported and not supported. And they know that many times they are at risk, they are at real risk and danger of disclosing. And that if they disclose, there's so many things that would be damaged, when they finally disclose. So it's actually very, very dangerous. Another type of abuse is from non-family caretakers. Non-family caretakers like teachers, religious leaders, nannies, house boys, drivers, people that they're not in the family, but they're very close. And many times these people actually come into the child's space. They would groom the child. They would gain the child's confidence. They've gained the parents' confidence already. The child studies the dynamics between these people and her parents and sees that there is, they trust, or they seem to trust this person so much. It breeds confusion. It breeds difficulty. So that's also another type of abuse. And then there's also the, child-on-child abuse, where you see loads of, young people, young teenagers being abused by their peers, people in their space, people that are just a few years older than them, people that are even still children themselves. If we use the definition of a child to be 18 and below, people that are still children themselves. And sometimes this happens in, places like boarding schools where you have all these boys and girls in dormitories together, a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old that has more power over her, a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old that has more power over him, and you see abuse taking place. Abuse also takes place in those sort of situations, and those are sexual abuse issues that comes up again and again. I'm going to invite Bolaji to join me now, so we can talk more about this and see more and discuss more on this issue of abuse. Let me add Bolaji. Bolaji, it's good to have you. Are you still here with us? I'm waiting for her to join us. Thank you for joining. It's good to have you, Nikki Chukwudi. Oh, hello, hello, hello. Nice meeting you. Yes,
I'm just
nice. It's nice to meet you today.
Yes, thank you.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Good to have you here with us. Okay, so today we're going to be looking closely on this issue of abuse, on this issue of child sexual abuse. We know it's prevalent, we know it seems to be growing, and we need to bring more knowledge out there. We need to talk about it. We need to raise awareness. And today I just want to, you have been in this field as well for a while. Just tell us a bit more about what child safety is all about, and what tell us, what you've done, what has led to you starting this, child body safety and safety with children. Do you want to tell us a bit more about it?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm getting used to Instagram Live, and I think I'm getting better at it. Thank you. This was started like getting to close to 4 years now. I used to work in the corporate environment for quite a while, and I'd always worked with children. I worked with I do design for children, so I'd go into schools to do designs for children. So I've always loved having children around. So it happened that I got into a course that was into like a psychology of children, and I started working with abused children. So I realized that when this abuse happens, and you give them duration for therapy, they hardly show up. Even when they come once, you won't see them again. And they keep forgetting, parents keep forgetting, or guardians keep forgetting that child sexual abuse is not like a physical wound that will show up and you will treat immediately. It's something that will come up in the child's life. It's a trauma that we as counselors and therapists cannot even measure. This thing shows up in this children's life. There's anxiety, there's fear, there's emptiness that you can't measure this thing. So I realized that parents, Nigerians, didn't believe in therapy. So when it happens, they find out that is if it comes out. That's if the parent knew it. So it started taking a toll on me. Like, there has to be a better way. For me, prevention is better than it happening to these children at all. So I started looking at prevention education and taking things from the prevention angle. So we started this child body safety initiative that is all about the interest of the child and teaching children about self-protection. So we started with a program called Discovering the Hero in Me for Children. So that's basically for 5 to 16, 17-year-old children, both boys and girls. And it's turned out to be greatly successful. Parents that didn't know, we go all out to teach them what schools are not teaching. So we added more programs to it. We added the Better Care workshop, which is for teachers, because we believe that teachers too can find out what is going on in the child's life. So everything that child body safety stands for, it's in the interest of the child. So we started capturing everybody that works in the interest of the child and started teaching them how to recognize these things, how the prevention education can really work for them and these children. So we went into school teaching parents. So we had this other workshop too for parents, which is called the parent-child workshop. So we teach parents what to look out for, the normal sexual development for their child, so that they don't mix when they start seeing some signs with something that is not okay. So we get into that circle of parents to teach, and so far we've been able to take hold of like 6,000 parents. We've been able to put words out there on how to prevent, how to avoid your child, and even if that had happened, how to get words out of your child to say what is going on. Because like I initially said, child sexual abuse, the trauma and the psychological effect of child sexual abuse, it's not something anybody can see. The devastating effect cannot even be weighed. Parents cannot even weigh it. Therapists cannot weigh it. And depending on depending on the period of abuse, that's how therapy should be taken seriously. So that's how child body safety came about. And we've launched out like 4 of our programs, which I've earlier said. The last one we launched was the Girls Must Know workshop, which is just for girls going newly into school, like going to year 7, GS1, or secondary school, and for teenagers, but it's basically for girls. So that is our latest addition. So we do everything that brings children together and teach them protective education, how they can avoid sexual exploitations, teaching them about their their good body image, teaching them about healthy sexuality, So because we found that a lot of parents, not that a lot of parents don't know, but we just realized a lot of parents don't know how to go about it. So we go about it and we do age appropriate.
About teaching the children, you mean? Yeah.
So we go about the age appropriate programs for children, where we separate every age group accordingly. So we've done that for the past 3 years now. So when we keep adding more programs as things comes up for us and for us as an organization.
Okay, fantastic. So a lot of the work you've done has been in the preventive or preventative arena. Have you worked with any? I mean, you talked about working with some children in regards to sexual abuse. How did that come to your attention? Is that from the government? From how did that come to your attention? These spaces you had.
A lot of people know what I do, and because I concentrate on abused children, so I get a lot of messages, a lot of calls that this has happened to this child, that can I come in, can your organization come in? Then we have private clients as well, But a lot of times, what we see on social media, on news, is basically from the less privileged communities. So we hardly see the privileged community come out to say this has happened to my child. So we get a lot of calls from those sides to work on these children, for the people that believe that therapy is very important for their child. And we have realized that a lot of time, some of these children locks up and they won't want to talk about it.
I have concerns about that. I have concerns about that hidden part, and the reason is because those perpetrators are probably still at large.
Yeah,
that's a big issue, don't you think? If a perpetrator has sexually abused a child, and for whatever reason the family are hiding that, they want the child to be safe, they want the child to be sorted, but they're not doing anything about the perpetrator. I don't think it's going to, I don't see how that's going to actually make that child feel safe. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes. There's a lot of situations. In fact, there's 70% of the situations are like that. But
which
that is
very,
why
very, very, very sad and dangerous, to be honest.
Yes,
because the perpetrator is at large.
Yeah. So it's just something that, it has to be all hand on deck. That parents need to understand that it's not just about your child anymore. You have to go about treating. Sometimes we've seen where therapy doesn't even work, because a lot of time some older kids or younger kids will lock up and will not say anything. So you tend to bring in play therapy or all other form of therapy to work on them. But a lot of time you will find out that, even that's why I like what Lagos State is doing now. A lot of time when you find out that most of these perpetrators are arrested, you will still realize that going back to prison or going back to the police station, you find out that some of them are released without even getting any notice. So it's a bit of a lot of stress for the child, and it's something that everybody has to come together to look into and work on it, because it can't be government. It's only what comes out to the government react to. So that is why we are saying that when you see something, you say something. And that is for people that see. There's a lot of times when the abusers are groomed the children so positively. Children don't even know what they're being. Right? I tell you for a fact that I have more adult child survivors than children that have been abused. Because a lot of them, when they were abused at the young age, never said anything. Yeah. So they just got to know now that, okay, this that happened to me is an abuse. So a lot of time we hardly see children come up. We hardly. And that's why that prevention education is so important for schools, for teachers, for educators, for parents. That's why we are preaching that. We have been through this. We have been children before. How many things did we tell our parents? A lot of people got this virgin and never told their parents in the first place. So it is not, it's going to still go on and on, that children will still not come out to talk about their situations. It's just rare cases. The abuse cases that we see out there, it's 5% of the abuse that is happening to children.
I even doubt if it's that, because Lagos State, I doubt it. I really doubt it. And I'm not joking, because if the amount of cases that were, convictions that we got for a whole year in a state of 20 million people, was 90 people.
Exactly.
Come on. Exactly. That is nothing. 90 convictions and we know that it's way more prevalent than that. I think what is sad to hear, what is really sad to hear, is this social class thing, and I'll talk a bit about that. Now, there's another level of abuse that I talked about the interfamilial. I talked about the caregiver. I talked about the your youth offenders, young children abusing other young children. But then there is also the open market place abuse, as in the children that are most vulnerable, to be honest, which Yeshua, and we are very concerned about vulnerable children. Every child is vulnerable, to be honest, but some are more vulnerable than others. Children that are street hawkers, children that hawk on the streets, children that are, beggars, domestic servants. That, some of these children are particularly at a higher level of risk. And we'll talk about risk factors later, but they are probably at a higher level of risk. Now, I think the concern for me, it's this social class. It's how the issue of social class is something that we need to look into where abuse is concerned, especially for, those of us that operate in a place like Lagos. Lagos is a very big city. The those on the low end, you probably never hear about their own situations. Children that are abused on the streets, child hawkers, their cases will probably never come to the attention of the local authority, the local government or the government or whatever you call it. It will hardly ever get there, because who is going to go and report? Who really cares enough for that child to go and report? And then we have the middle bit, which is what you're talking about, that is the one that is actually coming to the attention of the government, where probably there's some neighbors or whatever, the child has probably disclosed in school and they're able to take it forward. And then we have the high class. So they are also at a very high risk, where the people, or let me say the perpetrators of this abuse, are, they're so influential. They probably have so much money. They're probably the big wigs in families that people feel, we can't say this outside. Because I'm trying to understand how maybe parents will approach you for therapy, and the person that has actually sexually abused that child has not been made to face the wrath of the law. So it's a bit of a dichotomy, and that child would know that children understand what is going on much more than we know they do. It's not like if a parent is not able to say to a child, listen, what has happened to you is not your fault. We're going to take it forward. We're going to get them persecuted. Don't you worry about it. They're going to get, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that this person, it never happens to another child. If a parent is not able to reassure a child in that way and just thinks that, slap up some therapy is going to make it better for the child, I mean, we're fooling ourselves, to be honest, because that child knows that that person is still at large, and possibly that child is even at a higher risk. So that's actually quite sad. And it's actually quite sad.
And that's why they're trying to bring up the sex offenders registry in Nigeria, So but like you said, we still have those people that they will not be brought to books, So it's still a problem that if we keep pushing, if there's this advocacy around it, strong advocacy around it, it will get to where it's supposed to get to. And that's why I like a lot of organizations like yours and everybody coming up and surrounding child sexual abuse, because it can never be enough. Organization can never be enough, because my organization cannot get to all locality.
Not possible.
Your organization cannot get to all locality. So when I see organizations spring up and talk about child sexual abuse or child abuse, I'm always so happy to support, to give whatever materials I want to give them, to support in my own little way, because we can never be enough for these children. We can never be enough for this school. We can never be enough for this parent. So everybody that wants to come in should come with good intentions and come on board and preach what they have to preach, and make sure that whatever they're advocating for is working. And that's why I love everybody that come on board. If you come tomorrow and say you just started any advocacy on child, I am happy to support you.
It's very important that we have more people speaking. It's very important that we have more people engaged. One thing I realized is whatever it is that is being done is just scratching the surface. We're still scratching the surface, but we have to start from somewhere. We have to start from somewhere, and we can't afford to be discouraged. The good thing is that now we have social media, and social media is actually been a great help in terms of bringing things out to light. At least people know that people would speak. I'm still quite concerned at the fact that most services for children are seriously, grossly under-resourced. Under-resourced. So the resources are not there to even support these children. For the amount of children that we have that need these resources, the resources are not there. So that's already a battle, a big battle on its own. A Herculean tasking, how are we going to support all these children? How many children can you really reach? How many, what local, I tried to find out. I found out that there was only one central point, like a place. When I practiced in the United Kingdom, for example, when I practiced in a place like London, there were so many London boroughs. There were so many, where we thought we were under-resourced in the UK. It's nothing compared to a place like even a place like Lagos, it's seriously, grossly under-resourced. So why we have, so there's still so much work that needs to be done by NGOs. A lot of NGOs have to support. I'm just concerned that if children are not getting, if people are not getting, if children are not getting the support they need when this happens, do they get to a place where they feel defeated, like it's not worth it? How do I disclose this? How, is it really worth talking about? Because even as a professional, what we used to find was even when intervention happened, we always had to be very careful. Intervention, many times the way you see intervention nowadays, you see, I saw a child that was sexually abused a while ago, and you could see all news, journalists shoving the microphone in the child's mouth. Tell us what happened. Tell us what happened. And I just thought I just cringed from just seeing that, because for them it's news. For them it's juicy news. Yeah. They're not thinking about the impact of what they're doing on the child and on the family and on the child's future. And that's why some children, some families don't even want anyone to know, because obviously everything's going to be thrown out there. People are going to label their family. This is what is going on in this family. So that's another reason why there's so much fear.
That's why, I'm sorry to cut you short. That's why it's very important as well to teach. But it's just that Nigerian, being the fact that we are not there yet to capture what's the devastating effect of child sexual abuse on children. It's important that every reporter know how to report child sexual abuse. Like you said, it's not healing anything in the child's life when you go out all out. That's why you never see us put a picture of any child on. We can only go on programs, because now social media is more or less like a CV for social work. Now you want to see, because you don't want to hide it. So you will hardly see us put a child that with cancer or being under therapy in the line. A lot of people don't understand how to report child sexual abuse. It mostly work against the child. Yes. So by the time you start bringing the child back and forth, you have to be in court, you have to be at the police station, the morale of the child, the esteem of the child, everything about the child is already being weakened. So the child is being like, someone in the family is already telling the child that maybe even if you have not even said anything at all, won't be going through this stress. And it's not, it's not only the physical stress that goes on in the child. The parents are spending money, the parents are spending time. The child is not settled. The child is having anxiety that nobody is dealing with. The child is having emotional imbalances that these children are dealing with. But reporters, news keep forgetting that all of these things still had an adverse effect on the child. But how do
they don't care about that aspect. They are there for their juicy news.
They don't know about it. And that's why we haven't even gone to that part of teaching reporters how to report. So
that's probably just going to be a bit, the reason why I said that may be a bit of a waste of time for you is, for anyone, which I mean for that matter, is to focus and major on your majors, because they're just going to be fixated on getting their news. There was a lady, not even a child, a woman, not a child, that committed suicide because of the way the news recently, about a few months ago, how they hounded her so seriously over, she was supposed to have assaulted her boyfriend. I don't know the details of it, or her fiancé or something. She was supposed to have assaulted him. She was quite a popular person, a bit of a celebrity, and of course anything like that is juicy news for them, so they don't care. They're getting their news, they're getting their bits, their information, and they hounded her so badly the lady committed suicide. So really, I mean, I'm just looking at them as, okay, you're just doing what you feel you need to do, even if you tell them yeah, and it's always who is the first one to get this juicy news. See how they're shoving their microphone into the child's face. And I just thought, and the mother didn't know any better, because the mother obviously she seemed to me to just be kind of, semi-literate, and she wasn't very clued up what was going on, sitting with the child on her lap, no support. There was no, I would have expected to see the preventative services like social services, child welfare services, supporting her, but she just sat there vulnerable, no professional support with her, and talking about all these things. The child had not had a medical, and people just need to understand that there are processes and procedures, and it's important that members of the public know when you suspect this sort of thing, report it to the to allow her, we have the numbers on our page. Let them know. Make sure you follow it up. Make sure they're aware of it. Make sure you're clear on who you spoke to and what you have said, so that it's on record. If they're able to, if they take it forward from there, well, then that's up to them as the government. But you must do the right thing. Report to the right authorities. Let them be aware. Have a record of what you said, who you said it to, the day you said it. Have a record for the sake of the future and for the sake of that child, because we're all responsible. Every adult is responsible to ensuring the well-being and to promoting and protecting the well-being of every child that is around us. Yeah. So we mustn't keep our eyes close to what is going on. If a child happens to confide in us, or we see something negative about a child, we should be able to bring such things to light. That is I think that's actually a big thing, the fact that not many perpetrators are being persecuted. And that means every child is at a higher level of risk, because they do it, they get away with it. They do it, they pay their way out of it. They do it, they bribe their way out of it. They do it, sometimes they pay the parents. They pay the parents to be quiet. Many times when these children come from poor families where they can't even afford much, they can tell the parents, okay, this is you selling groceries for a living, selling, fruits for a living. How much is that bringing you? You don't have to make so much noise about it. Take ₦1 million, keep quiet and get on with it. Yeah. The tendency for that parent is to think, what will all my going to court do for me? What will all my, do? You know what? Okay, let's just take it and move on. So it's a sad situation, and like you said, one of the major things we can continue to do is to advocate for children, to begin to speak for children where we have the opportunity. Go to schools, educate children. If their parents are not doing the education, there should be bodies that should be at least supporting the education for the child, and letting the child know that whatever abuse happens is not your fault. This is what is going on out there. So do you want to tell us a bit more about what parents can do? Can you tell us a bit more about what parents can do to prevent these abusive situations? Children.
The first thing I would say is parents should talk about healthy sexual relationship with their kids. They find it very hard. A lot of parents find it very hard to talk to their kids about sex. And that's where the major problem comes. When you don't talk to these children about sex or healthy sexuality, they're still going to hear about it anyway, but it's better for them to hear from you as a parent or a guardian, because sometimes I consider a lot of children that don't have parents. Some of our children are very lucky to have us and to be very knowledgeable about this situation. So we tend to bring it to the light and tell them, okay, see, this is what is going on. This is what you have to do. But even at that, with a lot of people that are around children, genuinely they have interest of the child, whether as a parent, guardian, or teacher, or as a school, there's a way you can talk about healthy sexuality with children. Talk about boundaries, talk about consent, talk about respect. If you teach a child that a man or a lady or somebody respects you, respect your body, respect every part of you, I think if an abuse is about to take place, there are some situations that can be avoidable. But sometimes when these children don't know about it, that's when you get to see a lot of abuse that won't come up, because the child is trying to fix whether this is actually an abuse, or this is whether this person likes me, or this is whether this person is there for me. So if to your child, parents talk to their child about sexuality, healthy sexuality, healthy relationships. It solves most of the problem of child abuse. And parents need to know the fact about child sexual abuse. Parents need to know the fact. If parent knows the fact, it's easy for them to know what to talk to their children about. It's easy for them to know what to look out for. Then they need to supervise what what goes on in their child's life. They need to supervise what they watch on the internet or computer, or what's going on their phones. Like you said, the non-contact abuse it's on the rise in comparison to when we had the direct contact sexual abuse. So if parents are not really into what their child are doing right now, a lot of children are going to fall into that non-contact child sexual abuse. And you will not know, because on a normal day, the physical one that is happening can still happen under your roof, and you will still know about it. So it's very important that parents supervise. Apart from, teaching is even very important. Teach them what they need to know. Do not shy away from it. Do not shy away from teaching your child about sex. Do not shy away from teaching your child about consent. A lot of people overanalyze consent, but if we look at it, consent is very important in a child's life, to understand the primary definition of what consent is about. I must be able to give you permission to do anything to me.
But you must, having said that, we mustn't forget that it doesn't necessarily have to be consensual, or a child can seem not to resist. I think that's the point I'm trying to make. Many children don't resist their abusers, and I think it's usually because the abusers are clever. They groom the child. They gain the child's confidence. This abuser is probably...
That's where I'm going. That's where I'm going. Because if for the first, that's why I always put it as number one, to teach the child first. So when they're in the process of grooming, they know what to do. And most importantly, a groomer will look out for a child that is lonely, a child that doesn't have a very well-rounded self-esteem. So if you teach your child all these things, when this grooming process is going on, the child will be able to see what is right and what is wrong. So it's very important that teaching aspect for parents, for guardian, for uncles, or for anybody that has the interest of a child, because it's not every child that have parents. But once they have the interest of the child, once you want to be a champion in a child's life, you know what is important to talk to the child about. You're already teaching your child about swimming pool protection. You're teaching your child about safety around pools. You're teaching your child about safety around fire. So why is it not important to teach them the safety about themselves? Why is it so hard for people to... that's why we are coming in, like, if you can talk about fire safety, if you can talk about classroom safety, if you can talk about sports safety, why is body safety not important?
It's very important.
Yes, if these children knows what to do, I don't think we'll have a lot of problem. It won't be this grand, And it's important that once you see a very insecure child, once you know your child is insecure, you should be able to move into that child's life, because if you don't, someone else will do. And that is very important for a lot of parents. A lot of parents feel thinking, we had a case sometimes that the child was being talked over by our parents, always telling her that you're too fat and too this and too that. But the child, a lot of us as Nigerians, as Yoruba, as we are so respectful. Who dare you talk back to your parents anyway? So when those things are coming, you tend to imbibe them in emotionally. You're being drained. You're being, affected. So the child had the cook at home. And every time they keep telling the child, you can't have pizza, you can't have ice cream, you eat too much. We do it a lot. So when they send the cook to get stuff from the supermarket, the parents are not always home. So the cook will buy extra ice cream, pizza for the child. And it started grooming.
Mm.
So by the time he got into access to the child, like, see, don't mind them. It's not that you can be fat. These are all baby fat, you know. And already the
They're
child
even
is
fat
already,
and beautiful.
yeah, the child is already saying that this, my parents are telling me I am this, I am that. And someone
It's
from nowhere is
actually
telling me I'm
affirming me.
accepted, you know. So the child warmed up to the guy. And before you know it, the touching, the safe touching became unsafe touching. But because the child wasn't even told what unsafe touches and what safe touches are, she wasn't told. She couldn't really, she just feel that this person that have my interest at heart, it's
Mm.
probably the best for me. So whatever it does to me, it's probably in both interests. So it just be
Mm.
like abuse took place.
Yes.
How did they know about the abuse? It was because there was a CCTV in the house. That was why that abuse was noticed. So imagine if there was no CCTV. The
Sorry to
coach,
cut you in. Sorry to cut you in. We're about to be logged off. We will
okay,
come back. We will come back. So please, everyone that is with us, please join us back when this cuts off, and just because there's still a bit more that we have to say. So give us more time. I'll let you finish till it goes off. I'll let you continue till it goes off. Okay.